Good morning, everybody. This is DIY Dave, and we've got a new video for you today. Today, we're going to be working on this 2005 Buick Lesabre. It's got two problems. We've got a broken front transmission mount, and it's also reporting a series of oxygen sensor related codes. So we're going to be diving into both of those and see if we can knock both of those out. So hope you'll join us. Thanks for watching. So the first thing we're going to tackle on this car is we're going to take a look at the motor mount. Actually it's a transmission mount. It's at the front. It's real easy to get to. That's held on by a bracket with 4 different bolts. We're going to show that the engine is jumping to illustrate the fact that this motor mount has failed. So we're going to start it, we'll power brake it, and you'll see the engine jump pretty pronounced off of the front rail. Could you see it jump? Just to get you a little bit better view here of what we're looking at, there is the top of the motor mount that we're going to be taking out. And then there, just ahead of that, there is the top bolt of the bracket that secures that to the front of the transaxle. So we need to get that bolt. There's one underneath it that's the same size, this one, and then the one underneath it. About the only thing we have to do is we'll need to slide my floor jack underneath the transaxle, and what we'll do is once we get this bracket off, before we get this bracket off, we'll just need to provide a little bit of support for the engine block while we have the bracket, if I could talk it would help. Take the bracket off, and then we can replace this motor mount. This is what's failed. Put the bracket back on, put it back up, and we will be good to go. Now, looking underneath, there is here's the cross member, and this hole, it's a little awkward. This hole provides an access to the bottom. If I can get the camera lined up here so you can see it. That hole provides access to the bolt that we will need to loosen to get the motor mount out. Okay, first thing we're going to do is we're going to loosen the upper and lower bolts on the top of the motor mount itself. It's an 18mm bolt, and I'm going to use just a real simple wrench to loosen it up. See if we can break this thing loose. I'm one-handed. We are working with a new camera today, so I'm a little bit green on getting this thing lined up, so we'll do the best we can. Yeah, that's on there a little bit more snug. I'm gonna have to put some extra muscle behind that. Okay, decided we're gonna put the impact on this guy. If I can fit it down here, may need to use an extension. And we are just a little bit in the way. Let me get a little extension. Now, we're back at it here. Just put it's like a 3-inch extension onto the adapter, onto my socket, because we just didn't quite clear. There we go. One bolt out. Now we'll go below and get the other one. Get Mr. Tripod out of the way. Now we're not going to have room to get the, we're not going to have room to get this off of here, but I have more swing room, so I might be able to loosen that with a regular ratchet. So I was thinking I could get away with this without putting it on the lift. I think I still can. I'm just going to use my regular ratchet wrench to pull it loose. Okay, just have a regular ratchet. Just put the same 18mm socket on there. And let's just make absolutely sure I'm getting the right bolt here. So we are looking straight down. That's where the motor mount is. So we're looking straight down right there. So we're in the right spot. All right. Set this down and see if we can get enough leverage on here. I think I'll go get my other wrench for some additional leverage. Wow. That is not budging at all. We may have to put this on the rack. Okay, we are underneath the car. I have lifted the car up. I put it on my quick jack. So if you endeavor to do this and you don't have a quick jack, a floor jack, just lifting it up under the center post should be adequate. Make sure you use jack stands. I did not have enough room to get my impact. I didn't have enough room to get my impact into the hole where that bolt resides. So let's see if we can't get this puppy off. And I'm doing this with one hand. Ha! The power of the impact. Now, the bolt's off before we take off. Now, we've got to take these three mounting brackets, or bolt, 1, 2, and then one here, I think. Yeah, 3. Before we take those off, all the weight of the engine is now resting solely on the mount. If I take that bracket off, then the engine will try to slip forward. So we need to support the engine just a little bit. So I'm going to use my floor jack. Now I've got a little bit of a space constraint here in that I can't use my big floor jack. I don't have enough room. So I may get a bottle jack or something else, just something to prop up and give the engine a little bit of support while we take off that bracket. Why do I call it a biscuit? Maybe it's because I had biscuits for breakfast this morning. I don't know. Anyway, that's our next step. Okay, I brought in my small floor jack, just a little small throw jack with a little handle. Put a 2x4 underneath the engine and transaxle, and I've got it just enough tension where I noticed the engine go up maybe a quarter of an inch, a half an inch, just to know that it's exerting enough force to hold it up. And so now we can take the 3 bolts off of the bracket. Okay, reconvening, what you didn't see off camera was that I tried to get my impact to reach down there with those bolts that you see below on the mounting bracket. The problem is there was no way, and I wrestled with it several different directions, to get my impact gun down there to release those 3 bolts. I'm going to try my right-handed ratchet, but I don't think it's going to have enough oomph to loosen those bolts, so I may have to break those out by hand. So we'll give it a try. And doing this with one hand is nearly impossible. No, it's just not going to do it. I'm going to have to manually break those down with my regular ratchet and then spin them off with the 90 degree. So we'll be back in a moment. Okay. Using my regular ratchet wrench, I was able to get those bolts loose. I could not hold the wrench and leverage it and hold the camera at the same time. There's just no way, and I can't position my tripod such that I could get a good view of it. So I've got all 3 of those bolts broken loose. Certainly if I was able to get them loose by hand, anybody else that might try this should be able to do the same thing. So I think I should now be able to take my right hand, my little power driver, and see if I can get this guy out, mainly to use the extension. Okay, now we have the extension, and let's see if we can get this guy off of here. Yay, I think we got it. That's one. Go ahead and pull this guy the rest of the way out. That's one. Put it into our pile of bolts. Go for number 2 here. Whoop, slid off. It's not an absolutely clean fit here because of the, I believe that is the ABS module down there that's in the way just a little bit. And I don't think I've got a wobble that will fit in that corner, but we'll just, let me see if I can just spin, if I'm close enough to just spin that off. Let's see how close I am. No, not yet. It wants a little bit of juice. It wants a little bit of assistance. Let me see if I've got an L or a wobble or something that will let me turn that corner. Okay, it took some kludging, but I actually did find an elbow adapter that would let me go from my power ratchet with an elbow into that 15mm socket to get those other 3 bolts loose. So let's see if this helps some. And again, we're doing it one-handed. Let's see. No, it just doesn't, just not enough beans in that wrench. I'm just going to get my 15mm open end and just do it that way. Okay, 15mm flex head. We'll see if we can get it off this way. Yeah, it's just going to take some patience. That's going to get it off. It's just going to take some patience to spin it out. And I realize it's just about impossible to see because this is all shadows here. Okay, you see where I'm going with this. I'm going to go ahead and just take the wrench and get these other 2 bolts out. And we'll do that off camera so I can have both hands to work, okay? Back shortly. Okay, we got the lower bracket out, the bolt. Oh, and here is the bracket, and here is the dead motor mount. One each motor mount that is now oh yeah, that's slightly broken. See that moving? It shouldn't. That is a very dead motor mount. So all we need to do now, go put the new one in, put it all back together. Okay, just for a little comparison, here is the bad mounting transmission mount. I'll get it out in a minute. And notice that it is all separated and chewed up like this. Here is the new one that we picked up at Advanced Auto Parts. These were a little hard to find. Nobody, I tried Napa, AutoZone, O'Reilly's. and those are all local to this area. They may not be in your area. No one had it, or they had to order and it would be in later, and we didn't want to wait. We finally found it at Advanced Auto Parts. They had one, and it's the right one. It's an exact match physically, and it is rock solid. So all we need to do now is just reverse what we just did. Put this puppy in and screw it back and put the bolt back, and we'll be all done. So there is the mounting hole, and it's a little hard to see because of the color, the light adjustment, but there is the hole that goes in. Put that there. Finally realizing here's some much better light. Now you can see, in fact, what I'll do, that's the new mounting bracket, the new mount inside. Before I put on the old bracket, put it back in place. So all I've literally got to do is put the old bracket back where it was, and put the 4 bolts on top and the bolt on bottom. Put the bolts on to torque, and this part of the repair will be done. No point in videoing all that because it's just the reverse of what I've already done, and we'll go from there. We can at least try to put the existing bracket back in place. There. And all I have to do now is just line up the bolts and put the bolts back. Literally, it's a matter of just putting bolts back. And I will give you the torque specs for this car, for these brackets, in just a moment. Okay, the bracket is back in place. The 3 bolts are already started. The torque spec for the 3 bolts for the bracket is 42 foot-pounds. The top bolt into the mount is 59 foot-pounds, and the bottom is 52 foot-pounds. One thing I will tell you that I noticed when I was trying to line the bolts for the bracket up, after I put the new mount in, is that the bolts weren't lining up. They were going in a little bit crooked, and I finally realized that what happened was the old mount was so deteriorated that it had allowed the position of that mount to sink. So what I did is I already had the engine supported by my jack with the 2x4 below. I had to jack that up probably an inch and a quarter to get to the point where the bolts will line up level in the bracket into the engine and the transaxle. So keep that in mind if you have to do this. You may need to adjust the height of the engine to its new proper level with a properly operating mount. So I'm just going to get the torque wrench and get these bolts torqued to spec, and then we will replace the top and bottom mounts, and we'll be done. Okay, folks, the new motor mount or transmission mount is in. It is torqued to appropriate specs and clicks and ugga-duggas. As I noted before, it's nice and snug. Top and bottom, no problem at all. We have released the bottom floor jack that was supporting the engine, and this part of the repair is all done. Okay, we're going to start the car up with the new motor mount installed.
You want me to start?
Yeah, start it. Okay. Put your foot on the brake and put it in reverse. And now drive. Okay, put it back in park. All right. Okay, so we took a look at the engine after we replaced this motor mount down here, and we still saw some shifting. We definitely had a bad motor mount. No doubt that we replaced that, but I was still hearing this clunking when we take our foot off the brake, so we still have something that's amiss. And then as I was looking down here, I noticed what you might have a little tough time seeing down there is the control arm. The bushing in that control arm is way off center, meaning that center bushing has almost certainly completely collapsed. So now on this car, the bushings for the control arm cannot be replaced individually. You have to replace the entire control arm. So we've got a control arm, and in the next part of this video, the next video in what was an unintentional series, we're going to have a part 2. I don't normally do part 2s. We're going to replace that control arm. So thanks for watching on this first part. Hope you'll join us for the second part. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.